Configuration management has always had a critical role in the software development process. However, with today's almost unilateral requirements for faster, better, more cost-effective software development, you could easily say that CM's importance over the past decade has increased 100-fold. Configuration management, you see, is at the heart of every development project. It's an essential part of the software development process, from documenting initial concepts through the release and maintenance of the final application. You'll find CM solutions and policies guiding and managing project details, helping development teams deliver successful outcomes again and again. In this report, we'll present configuration management best practices that will help development teams maximize the benefits that a well-run configuration management process can offer. This program features expert Bob Aiello, a consultant and software engineer specializing in software process improvement, including software configuration and release management. He has more than 25 years of experience as a technical manager at top New York City financial services firms, where he held company-wide responsibility for configuration management. This report is based on Bob's book titled Configuration Management Best Practices. There are several teaching points in this program. We'll set the stage by discussing what configuration management is all about and why it matters. Next, a look at the challenges development teams can face with CM and how to navigate them. Then, we'll offer best practices to keep in mind as you fine-tune your configuration management processes and environment. And finally, we'll conclude with parting thoughts and advice from our guest expert, Bob Aiello. Now, let's begin our report. Let's introduce our topic, configuration management, and learn of its critical role in software development today. As just mentioned in the opening of our report, the complexity, need for speed, and the always intense focus on cost and ROI can create enormous pressure on the talented teams creating the amazing technology-based systems, applications, and products that we all benefit from today. To bring a real-world example of the kind of project stress we're talking about, please consider an example from the world of industrial equipment manufacturing. In the U.S., machinery industries will have total domestic and foreign sales exceeding $400 billion this year. A recent survey of over 200 IEM workers by the research firm Aberdeen Group identified the top pressures IEM organizations face with delivering their technically complex and customized products. See if you can relate to these survey findings. According to the survey respondents, the top project pressures IEM's experiences are as follows. 51% stated the demand to launch new products too quickly and before the competition as a top pressure point. 48% indicated the market demand for higher quality or higher performance products. 47% of the survey respondents noted the market demand for highly customized and complex products created a pressure point. 42% specified the market demand for lower cost products. 34% pointed to compliance with regulations and/or industry standards as a top project pressure. So it seems no matter if you're an industrial equipment manufacturer producing some of the most complex products in the world or a tech firm rolling out new applications, the project pressures are remarkably similar. Configuration management is certainly one tool that project teams of all varieties need in their arsenal to keep complex and demanding projects on track. Let's turn to our expert, Bob Aiello, as he explores CM and the benefits it brings to his area of expertise, the world of software development. Bob, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's start from square one. From your perspective, what is configuration management, and more importantly, why does it matter?
Configuration management is a set of practices that helps your entire team understand the different things that they need to do, from managing your source code to building your code to release packaging. There's many different aspects of the software and systems delivery effort, and these are the practices that the whole group needs to adopt in order to be successful. So it really improves the way that you have traceability and transparency throughout the whole software and systems lifecycle.
And Bob, when you're consulting on a development project and you review the team's configuration management process and practices, what approach do you take and what issues do you look for?
Well, I usually get started by taking a look at what the existing practices are. Sometimes I'll find that teams are using source code management tools that they haven't really been well trained in, or perhaps they're free but not very robust in their features. Some tools, people have trouble merging their code so that they end up introducing errors into the process. A lot of times when I look at how they're building their code, I may find that the team has problems or defects that get introduced during that whole build, package, and deploy process. So I always get started by looking at what's going well and what could be improved. And quite frankly, groups are often extremely clear about where they're having problems, because there are things that are biting them on a daily basis that they would really like to get fixed. The key goal that I ask every organization is, can you prove to me that you've got the right code running in production? This is called a physical configuration audit. Can you verify and validate that the exact code is running in production and it has not been tampered with? And I find that, frankly, most organizations can't do that. And that has huge implications for how they address cybersecurity threats. So making sure that a group can really prove they have the right code in production and automatically detect unauthorized changes is a key thing that you get from configuration management best practices.
Well, I'm certain that CM has greatly impacted how software development projects are managed on a day-to-day basis today. Tell us about its core practices, though. What's at the heart of configuration management?
Well, there are really 6 core practices that occur in the real world. The first one is source code management. A lot of times we say version control. Source code management tools can vary in terms of their features, but the most basic is, do you have your source code checked in? And if one of your developers were to leave, is that code secure? Is it baselined and tagged so you know exactly what went into a particular release? Do you have automated procedures to build your code from scratch? So if there's a defect, can you figure out what version is running in production, get to that source code, make a 2-line fix without any chance of the code regressing due to the wrong version of something? So that source code management, build practices, those are really key. The next one is really environment management, and this is the one that bites every organization. Do you have a clear understanding of what needs to be in your environment? And then we move on to talk about change control. And there's 7 different aspects of change control that we'll talk about. But release engineering is the next function. You have to be able to coordinate your releases as well as package them successfully. And then, of course, deployment engineering is the 6th. So it's really source code management, build engineering, environment management, change control, release engineering, and deployment engineering.
Well, this all sounds great, but aren't there some real challenges with implementing CM? Tell us about the challenges development teams and their leaders might face.
So the first challenge that I often run into is that organizations are adopting new technology. So often the technical aspects of what's the most efficient way for me to store my source code. Not every piece of source code is simple little files. We're working a lot more with what are called objects, and sometimes getting version control around all of your code can actually be pretty challenging. Plus, how do I do that across different platforms? I may be working with one piece of code that's running on a mainframe, another piece of code that's running on Windows or perhaps some Unix-based servers, and then I got my handhelds, I got my Android and my iPhone. All that code has to be coordinated through a source code management system that can really enable you to work across those different platforms. And then the build engineering challenges are often pretty formidable. And how do I package those releases so that they can be easily deployed? And then we start getting into some of the real nitty-gritty issues, like how do I monitor my environment so that I know that if I'm going to run out of memory or certain ports are not open? And then how do I coordinate promoting those changes in terms of change control? So there's many different aspects of configuration management, and to be really successful with it, you have to take a very strong technical approach, but you also have to make sure the whole team is communicating and collaborating effectively.
And Bob, what do you believe to be the biggest misconceptions about configuration management among software developers today?
The biggest misconception I find is that folks think that all CM is just check your code into a version control tool and you're done. Or I'll have folks say to me, I'll ask them, can you prove to me the right code is in production? And they'll say, well, sure, I've got it checked into, my version control tool. Well, That's not good enough. I call that leaving breadcrumbs behind you, and you may find those breadcrumbs are not there when you try to find your way back. What I want to do is not just rely upon the code being in a version control tool. I want to set things up so that the runtime executables in production can self-identify, can tell you exactly what version they are, and give you enough information so you can find that exact baseline of the code in your version control tool. And that's not all. What I also want to be able to do is to take that baseline of the source code, put it into a sandbox, and through an automated procedure, build, package, and be able to deploy a fix in a very fast iteration to be able to be responsive when changes really have to get made.
We'll now talk about effectively working with development teams, leadership, and changing organizational culture. One of the classic real-world examples of configuration management at work was widely reported by the major media outlets from some years back. It involved a software glitch at the New York Stock Exchange. The glitch, as the story goes, actually caused trading to be suspended for close to 90 minutes. At fault, a new software installation. The new software had been installed on 8 of some 20 trading terminals, and despite a rigorous overnight testing session, failed to work on all 8 of the upgraded terminals the next trading day. The New York Stock Exchange made the effort to switch back to the old software, but could not make that happen in time for the opening bell of the new day's session. The news reports of the event noted that the outage might be considered a failure of the New York Stock Exchange's configuration management process. In fact, however, it was not. You see, NYSE's configuration management in reality limited the downtime as well as the negative impact of the event. If the issue had not been contained and had continued beyond the 90 minutes to, say, a half day or a full day, for example, the repercussions would have been far greater and more austere. With that story in mind, let's return to our expert, Bob Aiello, and continue our discussion on today's topic, configuration management. So, Bob, how would you respond to this situation? You were tapped for a development project, and after inquiring about configuration management with the team leader, you're told it's just fine. Leave it alone. It's working well. What do you do or say?
Well, first and foremost, if things are going well, or really perhaps a better way to put it is a team thinks things are going well, then I often don't focus on the things that they think are okay. I may warn them. I may tell them, hey, the way that you're doing version control, I've seen other groups have problems with, because what's going to happen is they're going to add a couple more members of the team, and then whatever they were doing informally to coordinate things is not going to work for them anymore, and I'm going to find them right at my doorstep. So I'll let them know that I see a problem looming ahead. But in every case, I focus on the team priorities. What are the things that that group believes really have to get fixed first? Because you have to make sure the team agrees with you to some extent that a particular issue has to be addressed. If you try to fix things that they don't view as being broken, you're not going to be very successful. So you really have to, there's a very strong technical aspect to this, but there's also a sense of what the team views as being their own priorities.
Well, many organizations struggle to fully implement effective CM. Am I correct? What is your advice there?
Well, Mike, it's very important to consider this from the bottom up and also the top down. So I try to speak to as many stakeholders as I can. I may find that the DBAs are being left out of the loop, or perhaps they're unaware that there's now specialized tools to do version control natively inside of your database. They may not know about the latest technologies, and that's because they've been in an organization for a period of time. They know their job, but they're not as aware of the outside ecosystem. So I work from the bottom up and also from the top down. I gather lots of information, and then I try to talk to the CTO or other senior managers, and very often I find that they're actually unaware of what some of these opportunities are. And once you raise to their awareness where we can improve things and where we could make things better, database version control being a great example, a lot of times they're very much willing to fund and give approval to process improvement efforts that may even cost them a little bit of money. So it's very important to start by looking at some of the easy things to fix. Don't tackle the toughest things at first, because you may find that you get bogged down and you don't really get the traction you need. I find that if we tackle a couple of small pieces and we get some hits, then the whole group starts to realize that things can change, things can improve, and they take a very different approach to looking at the way they can improve their processes. So taking an agile, iterative approach to how you implement CM best practices is really the most effective way. And ensuring that you go after the things that the team views as being really important, and that this is an opportunity to address any kind of challenges that the group comes across. If you can get that in place, then your team is much more effective. They can tackle any challenges that lie ahead.
Well, let's talk about skills and personalities of development teams. On a typical project, of course, with good configuration management in place, who do you want as team members? Describe them.
So certainly being able to script and automate each of the steps of your whole build, package, and deploy are very important. But I like to also talk about technical flexibility, the ability to work across different platforms and technologies. Even if you're not a specialist in one particular area, the fact that you've got some familiarity with that area helps you be able to communicate with the other stakeholders who are involved with this process. You really want to get to a place where your whole team can take a systems approach, where they understand the whole system from soup to nuts. And that's easier said than done. I often find that we've got specialists in every organization. They understand their one aspect of the technology, but they really lack that cross-systems perspective. So getting everybody in the same room or even on the same call and sharing what they know. One thing that I very often do is instead of having a team member go off and fix something, I'll say to him, hey, let's do a WebEx. Can you share your screen? Can you teach me what you're doing? That cross-pollination, that knowledge sharing helps the whole team become much more effective and really transform to be a knowledge organization.
Well, it would seem to me that in order for development projects to be successful these days, it takes a manager with great leadership skills. Describe the characteristics of an effective team leader from your point of view.
Well, the most important thing that I find in team leaders is someone who can help the whole organization realize that change is very doable, and really encourage each of the members to look at what they're doing right now and give them the space to be able to improve things. But there's another thing that is much more important, actually, and that is a willingness to address mistakes and problems in a very comfortable, free way. So if a team has a mistake in a release, get that team together. Let them be comfortable discussing what went wrong and be able to take a practical approach to improving things. So the leaders really have to create the environment that we're all comfortable admitting our own mistakes and how we can improve things, and then really empowering the whole group to be able to take us to the next level.
Well, Bob, that leader is going to need the support of those who are higher up in the organization, correct?
So it's really important for the whole organization to understand that their technical team is a key function, a key resource. You need that support from top-level management on down to the folks that are really in the trenches doing the real work. But there's another part of this, and that's from an IT governance perspective. You have to make sure the right information is being communicated up top so that you are letting your managers understand the challenges that you have and how they might be able to help you be more effective. So, for example, if you don't have the right source code management tools in place, or maybe you've got some free tools, but there are other tools that if they gave you the funding for would improve the way you do things, being able to communicate what advantages there are to changing your processes or changing your tool set can really help senior management make the right decisions and then help you in turn be more effective at your job.
Okay. Well, sounds a bit like you're attempting to change organizational culture. Is that correct?
Organizational culture and the change that you really need to have is the most important aspect. I want an organization that welcomes people addressing any kind of problems or challenges they have, particularly an organization where folks can admit their mistakes. I want an organization where people don't feel threatened where they can share their knowledge and they're rewarded for teaching other people how to do things. You really have to have a whole cultural shift, because too many organizations, people are kind of set in their ways. They feel they have to defend their turf. They don't trust senior management. If you want to be successful today, you've got to really value the human beings doing the work, understanding their whole global culture. You may have players working all over the world, all different time zones, and really empower that group to be the best that they can be, consider their careers, their training opportunities, and then provide that kind of environment where we're all comfortable improving the way we do things, and most importantly, helping each other be successful.
We'll conclude with the best practices to keep in mind as you fine-tune your configuration management processes and environment, as well as final thoughts and advice on our topic from expert Bob Aiello. In this report, we talked about configuration management and learned why it's such a critical part of software development projects today. We reviewed the challenges development teams can face with CM and how best to navigate them. Next, we'll offer viewers some best practices to keep in mind as you roll out or enhance your configuration management processes and environment. Bob, effective CM doesn't happen overnight, and you have even written that, like any change, it may be a little rocky at first. Give us a list of best practices we should keep in mind as we ramp up a CM environment.
Well, I find that implementing CM best practices can sometimes be a little disruptive because I'm really challenging groups on how they do things. And let me go to a particular example we haven't talked as much about, and that is change control. A lot of times organizations don't do a good enough job with change control. So they may be focused on the calendar. You know, can this weekend have a new set of code pushed into production? But perhaps they didn't include all the right stakeholders and evaluate technical risk. So when I'm implementing these new practices, I've got to consider how these changes impact the whole team and what can really help them be more effective. Change control is one good example. But really understanding how the tools work, how their processes work, how ALM fits into the picture, how DevOps fits into the picture, all these different aspects of their software and systems methodology is really how the team can continuously improve and ultimately help the business be more competitive.
In your books, you've stated that to sustain effective project controls like configuration management, development teams must focus on improving communication and collaboration. Why is that such a critically important idea? Tell us about that.
Well, the computers don't really program themselves, right? Well, I guess in some cases these days they do. But really the key aspects are that your team has to work effectively together. And being able to help all the different smart people that are in your organization, who are very often specialists, helping them to share what they know, helping them to be able to teach each other, to quickly jump on a call and help each other figure out and fix problems, that is really where you're going to achieve success. So the more successful organizations look at problems and challenges as opportunities for the team to excel, where people are comfortable admitting their own mistakes or quickly raising awareness of different problems that occur, and the attitude should always be, how can I help? And then after we're done with the emergency, how can we ensure this kind of problem doesn't occur in the future? So that organization is always sharpening the saw. They're always working toward being better and helping each of their team members improve their own capabilities, their own technical skills, their own career options, and really as an organism, helping the entire organization improve and really be successful together as a team.
Okay, Bob. If you will, please offer a final bit of advice for our viewers on today's topic.
Well, I think the most important thing is start small. Really tackle a couple of small items, might be how you're doing version control, build engineering, and achieve some success. Don't tackle the tough things. And I've told so many organizations this, and sometimes they call me back a year later and they say, you know what, we didn't listen to you. We tackled this really tough initiative. We haven't gotten it off the ground. I say, okay, it's fine. Let's practice what we preach. Let's pick something nice and easy and be successful with that, get a hit on the scoreboard, and then all of a sudden the team believes that things can be different. So being able to pick a couple of small items, successfully implement those process improvement initiatives, and then quickly turn around and say, what can we do next? That is really what's key. Focus on training, focusing on rewarding people, focusing on helping each member of the team be the best that they can be, and most importantly, making sure the whole group works together effectively. Years ago, I was on a very serious call involving a major bank that had a huge outage. And one of the senior managers was trying to get everybody calmed down so they could fix the problem. And one of the things he said is, look, I realize a mistake was made here today. I realize we had a problem. We even lost some money. But what I value more is that each of you is working together and trying to help each other be successful. And that's what I need you to focus on. Because if I have a team that is successful and works together, then we can do anything.
Well, Bob, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for sharing such great information about configuration management.
Well, Mike, thanks. It's been my pleasure to be here.
That concludes our report, Configuration Management Best Practices. I'm Michael Quinlan, and thanks for watching.